Alright. So, our goal on this one is to use Pythagorean theorem again. And simplifying radicals. To discover properties of 45, 45, 90 triangles. So our one special right triangle that we learned first was 30, 60, 90. These ones are 45, 45, 90 triangles. So what we're going to do here is if we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, what kind of triangle do we have? Go ahead. Isosceles. Because across from these base angles, across from 45 and across from 45, we have to have two congruent sides. When you have two congruent sides in a triangle, we call them an isosceles triangle. So the reason why this is special is because it's an isosceles right triangle. That's what makes it special. It's an isosceles right triangle. So, if these two are congruent then, what do you know about x? It has to be 6. Because those two legs have to be congruent. Okay? What we're going to do now is we're going to use Pythagorean theorem to solve for y. So, what's Pythagorean theorem? What's our Pythagorean? Thank you. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So, a leg is 6, a leg is 6. Remember, across from the right angle, there's your hypotenuse. So we have 6 squared plus 6 squared equals y squared. 36 plus 36 equals y squared. What's 36 and 36 add to? 72 equals y squared. How do I get y by itself here? Square root both sides. On this side I have y. On this side I have the square root of 72. Can I leave y as the square root of 72? It's not simplified. Okay? If I wanted to find the approximate answer, I could at that point plug it in my calculator. But I'm looking for exact answers, and I want simplest radical form. So the square root of 72. What is a perfect square that goes into 72? 36. So the square root of 72 turns into the square root of 36 times what number? The 36 we chose because we can take the square root of it. What is the square root of 36? 6. So I have 6 square roots of 2. Are we ready? Alright, so what you have here is, we already did 6, which it's not in our table, you'll notice. But pick another one, and let's label the right triangle. So which one you guys want to do? If the length of the leg was 6, we got 6 square roots of 2. We'll add that other column in there. Column. Okay, so let's pick another one. It says the length of each leg. We have 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10. Which one you want to do? 3, sure. So the length of the leg is 3. What's the other leg have to be? Figure out the hypotenuse. Go ahead and do that now using Pythagorean theorem. So we were getting 3 square roots of 2 there. Do we see a pattern? If our length of our leg was 3, then our length of our hypotenuse is 3 square roots of 2. If our length of our leg is 2, what would the length of our hypotenuse have to be? 2 square roots of 2. And if it was 1, what is it? 1 square root of 2, which is just the square root of 2. How about if it's 5? 5 square roots of 2. How about if it's 7? How about if it's 10? How about if it's L? Okay. So on this one, we go from the leg. What do you notice? What do you know about the leg and the leg? They are congruent. Okay. What do you know about if you want to go from the leg to the hypotenuse? How do you go from the leg to the hypotenuse? Multiply by the square root of 2. If we want to go in the reverse direction, then what would we do? Very good. Okay. Now, you'll notice that that was the other number that was on that practicing radical worksheet. We did multiplying and dividing by the square root of 3, multiplying and dividing by 2, and multiplying and dividing by the square root of 2. Because those are the 3 golden numbers that we use with special right triangles. So, let's look at these 2 examples together. On this one, you're given a leg. What I like to do is mark your legs congruent in your diagram. Where's your hypotenuse? Y. Okay, that means these are your 2 legs that are congruent in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. What's x then have to be? X has to be 4. If you really wanted to, you could go and do Pythagorean theorem every time to find y, but now we have our shortcut. So remember, this is what we had. And what did we know about these 2 things? These were congruent. Okay, they were congruent. How did we go from the leg to the hypotenuse? Times by the square root of 2. So here my work, how do I go from a leg to the hypotenuse? Multiply by the square root of 2. Now it doesn't matter which leg you go from because the legs are the same. Okay, so what is 4 times the square root of 2? So that's what I'm going to get for y. That's what I get for x. Are we okay so far? All right. The next one we're given the hypotenuse. What do you know about x and y? They're equal because I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle here, so those have to be congruent. Okay, I have to get to the legs. So, how do you go from the hypotenuse, this is the hypotenuse, to a leg? Here is one where we're going to have to show our work. You did not write this down or you're trying to work on the assignment right now. I would highly recommend to go back to the notes and do this with us. Okay, this is what I see happens. This is like the biggest error problem that I see throughout this section. Okay, so 28 divided by the square root of 2. If you actually write that out, this is what it looks like. Does any mathematician like that sign? How do we write it? Fraction. So we have 28 divided by the square root of 2. Would that be acceptable to write as y? No. Why? Square root in the denominator says there's a house in the basement and that's not allowed. Doesn't even make sense. Don't put a house in the basement. Unless it's a dollhouse, but we won't go there. Anyways, how do I get rid of the radical? Undercover 1. What undercover 1 do I use? Square root of 2 over the square root of 2, which is equivalent to 1. I'm not changing the value. Okay. What do I get on the top when I have 28 times the square root of 2? What do I have on the bottom? What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? The square root of 4, which is 2. And I don't care if you have to write that in 2 separate steps or if you can write it in 1, that's fine. But it is the square root of 4, which is 2. So if you want to write it in 2 separate steps, that's fine. Okay, now what happens?
28 divided by 2.
Now we can do 28 divided by 2, which is what?
14.
So we have 14 square roots of 2 for the answer there, simplified. So y is equal to 14 square roots of 2. Now, not every time will 28 be divisible by, well, yes, every time 28 is divisible by 2. But if we had a different number there, like 27, 27 is not divisible by 2, and we would have 27 square roots of 2 over 2. We would have to leave it like that. Okay? But But in this case, we could come up with 14 squared is 2. What's the value of x then? It's the same thing because those are congruent. Okay? So, you want to make sure that you are showing your work when it comes to simplifying radicals and stuff. So, you guys now have enough information to go back and finish, oh, I forgot I gave my worksheet away, and finish the back side. So you should be able to now complete that entire worksheet.